Hey, this is Scott Weinberg for The Horror Show, and I'm back with another mini podcast to recommend a few found footage horror films on the service that I particularly like. Found footage is a potentially fantastic device for filmmakers, especially indie horror filmmakers, to explore. I also think that the good found footage horror films make it look very easy so that amateurs with very few ideas can copy it, and the result is a glut of truly painful to watch, really awful found footage movies. So the general horror geek thinks that for every 8 bad ones, there are maybe 2 good ones. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but with people like us around, you can hopefully pick through and find some of the better ones. The first film I'll cover today is called Evidence, which is probably my least favorite of the 3, but is better than I expected, and here's why. It's a very standard found footage horror film for one half of the film. The other half is a pretty standard police procedural about the post events of a murder that the cops are trying to piece together who did the murder. So it cuts back and forth between a pretty standard cop story and a pretty standard found footage horror film, but they both actually combine to make it a little bit more interesting than it sounds. Plus, it's got Stephen Moyer from True Blood, who people love. I also like him. And Radha Mitchell, who is a fantastic actress and does a lot of genre films. Evidence, I would definitely say it's worth 90 minutes. Considerably better than that, Banshee Chapter, which I won't tell you much about, but it's about a woman who is delving into the disappearance of a friend, and it turns out that her friend had experimented with a very secret government drug.
Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place.
Aren't you worried about the dangers of taking it?
This little guy is 150 milligrams of specially enhanced dimethyltryptamine. If this little chemistry experiment goes sideways, I want you to finish my book and dedicate it to me.
You won't know exactly where it's going. It's kind of unpredictable, Banshee Chapter, and therefore already worth half a recommendation, because if you don't know where it's going in an indie horror film, that's a good thing. Fortunately, the director also has some skill behind the camera, so the found footage gimmick works well, but not just that, but it has a fantastic lead performance by a newcomer I don't know very well named Katja Winter. But it also has some support work from Ted Levine, best known as Jamie Gumb from Silence of the Lambs. And Ted Levine plays a prickly Hunter S. Thompson-style recluse of an author who gets reluctantly involved in this horrific investigation, and it is a source of color and fun throughout the whole film. Even when the film is not cooking on all cylinders, Ted Levine is great. The film really picks up in the third act. It has some nice surprises, and I definitely recommend Banshee Chapter. Perhaps better, on the same level, is another, this one might be even considered a micro-budget. I don't really care, but it's interesting to note that you can sometimes make good films with very little money if you have some good ideas. Daylight is about a team of child welfare investigators who go to look into some accusations about a priest and some teenage girls, and it turns out that, oh, you think it's going to be one of these horror films that's a brutal attack on the church, and isn't this going to be pedestrian?
The place was a mess. Thanks to the surface level receding, the second of the 2 tapes was found just a few weeks ago, right over there.
It goes in some very interesting directions. It is, for lack of a better term, kind of a slow burn, but it's full of interesting characters and a few really interesting twists. And yeah, horror fans will be pleased with what arises in Act 3. It's smart. It has some ideas that are beyond, I have a camera in the woods and let's run around with it. That in and of itself is worthy of praise. When you know, people have money and a team to make an indie horror film, that they try to be slightly original, it comes across on the screen. So that's why I definitely recommend Daylight and Banshee Chapter, and to a lesser degree, Evidence. It is kind of fun. So there you go. Found footage. It's not all junk.